Is Tekken 8 any good? Well, okay then. Performance review this. I have a confession to make. If there's a genre of games I don't play, it's fighting games. This is the first Tekken game I've played since Paul Phoenix was young. Man, Paul, what happened? But I figured this was gonna be a good video because a lot of people like Tekken. So Tekken 8 might as well be the game that gets me in the fighting genre. Nice. And there's a lot going on. But Bandai has been nice enough to provide us with some study materials. 7 volumes of it. What the heck's going on? Why does this guy have a tiger head and run an orphanage? Or why are there a bear and a panda in this game? And most importantly, who joins a fighting tournament to further their coffee bean company? So many questions that you won't be getting answers to in this video, except for that burning question, how does it run on a Steam Deck? But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the story. Man, they were not kidding when they said longest running saga. Here's what I got from the story. This guy with the bad hair, he was the best. Then this guy with the spiky hair came along and beat him. In the next 2 games they went back and forth a bit, and then they lost the plotline. But at some point demons got involved, and then it all escalated into a world war. I have no idea how. Alright, let's get started. I must have died like 10 times in this first battle. It's a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be. And that's not just speaking for the fights. There are so many modes and options to choose from. Even the tutorial it starts with is overwhelming. There's definitely a lot going on here. Let's talk performance. Right out of the box, the game runs decently well. But it doesn't look pretty, which isn't surprising with settings like these. The settings out of the box are Cat Mill ROM by Cubic. Got it. With all settings on low and rendering scale at 55, so a significant downgrade, but we seem to be getting pretty close to the 60 frames per second most of the time, with some drops here and there. Let's see if we can do better. There are a lot of upscaling techniques available here, but since Digital Foundry's already made a video, I went with their settings. Because, you know, unlike me, they know what they're doing. But for some reason I'm not getting anywhere near the performance that they did. Not sure what I'm doing wrong here, but you should definitely trust them over me. Some other settings I tried seem to yield better performances. Fight. And actually, before we get into that, I want to mention how crazy and awesome the character side stories are. How about this bear, who's a member of the Tekken Force? Or this lady with a devil seal in her arm. Also, is this Yoshimitsu from the Soul Calibur series? That's a cool little crossover. Alright, back to performances. Let's blast through some of these. FSR2 balanced, same settings as before. A bit blurry with a frame rate around the 50s. TAAU, even blurrier and the frame rates don't look great. NIS balanced. This looks pretty good and the frame rate's decent. XESS balanced. This also looks pretty good and again the frame rate's pretty good too, but not stable at 60. Back to FTS again. I found this VSR setting that seems to have a bit of an effect for the better. And then Cat Mill ROM again. This is the one I keep coming back to. It's a bit blurry, but the frame rate's very decent and nearly stable at 60. And here's everything I tried next to each other. It all runs very decent, and I know 60 frames per second is a must for fighting games. But if you're willing to compromise, capping at 45 would be a great option for many of these. It would bring up latency a bit, which is not ideal. There's one more performance area we should talk about. But before we do that, let's talk about this new arcade mode, which bears a striking resemblance to a certain Pocket Monster collecting type game, but despite that it's still surprisingly addictive. I'm a sucker for any kind of career mode in a game, and that's basically what this is. Make your avatar, which I spent way too much time on by the way, pick a main, and then take your avatar to different arcades to make a name for yourself and dethrone the reigning champions, who happen to also be total douche canoes. Really well done. And with all of that said, let's talk loading times. That's how fast they are. Not really, but I wanted to do that. But in all seriousness, the loading times between matches are decently fast. And the same goes for loading into the game and between modes. Really, nothing to complain about here. All loading times are fast, performances are pretty good with frame rates at 60 frames per second if you have the right settings. And it all looks pretty great on the small screen of the Steam Deck, especially the Steam Deck OLED. And most importantly, I ended up beating that boss after all. So maybe Tekken 8 will be the game to get me into fighting games after all. That's all I have for today. Check out this video for more amazing games on the Steam Deck that you're gonna want to play, and I hope to see you in the next one.